Number 9. KELSEY QUAYLE. 28-year-old aspiring model KELSEY QUAYLE crashed her car on a Georgia road while on the way to her dental assistant job on October the 8th of 2018. Video surveillance from a gas station in the area captured QUAYLE veering into oncoming traffic and colliding with 2 cars. She was rushed to the hospital where doctors discovered that she'd also suffered a gunshot wound to the neck. The combination of injuries from the accident and gunshot proved so severe that QUAYLE had to be put on life support. 2 days later, her family made the decision to turn off the machines and the woman passed away. Investigators struggled with the case because there had been no reports of shots fired or of anybody driving recklessly on the morning in question. The authorities suspected that the bullet was either randomly or accidentally shot from a passing car. After looking through several different surveillance videos from the area, investigators noticed a man who'd been involved in 2 altercations on the same road just moments before the shooting and considered him as a person of interest. However, they weren't able to identify him and no arrests were made as of the latest updates. Number 8. Dana Rojo Rivas. On the evening of November the 23rd of 2016, the day before Thanksgiving, teenager Dana Rojo Rivas was shot after leaving church with her family in Los Angeles. She was riding in the back seat of the car when her mother unknowingly drove through a gang-related shooting, resulting in Rojo Rivas being struck by a stray bullet. The intended targets were 2 men who were stopped at a traffic light in a burgundy SUV while Rojo Rivas' mother was making a right turn. At that point, as reported by the authorities, a man in another car fired several shots at the SUV. One of the bullets hit the Rojo Rivas family car as it was turning, went through the backseat window and struck the teenager in the chest. The shooter fled the scene in his car while the intended targets, who emerged from the shooting unharmed, ran away on foot. Rojo Rivas' 18-year-old brother and pet poodle were also in the car as the incident unfolded, and when her mother realized what had happened, she immediately pulled over. Fellow churchgoers called 911 and rushed over to try to help, but Rojo Rivas had already succumbed to her injuries. The poodle, who'd been sitting on Rojo Rivas' lap in the back seat, ran into the street and was fatally hit by a passing car. As of August 2022, nearly 6 years since the tragic incident, the case remains unsolved. On June the 2nd, the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors offered a $20,000 reward to anyone with information that could potentially lead to the arrest and conviction of the people responsible for Rojo Rivas' death. Number 7. SARON James. On July the 16th of 2019, SARON James was traveling down a Texas road with her husband when she was suddenly struck by a stray bullet. The couple had just left a doctor's appointment and initially they thought they'd heard fireworks. Then, as James's husband looked over at her, he saw the woman slumped over in the passenger seat with a gunshot wound to the head. She was rushed to the hospital but ultimately passed away from her injuries. Witnesses told investigators that 2 individuals in a white SUV had gotten into a verbal altercation with the driver of a black Ford pickup truck that was parked on the side of the road. Then, the driver of the SUV returned to his car and opened fire at the pickup with a rifle that a bystander saw sticking out of the window. James's car, which had previously been traveling right behind the 2, was caught in the crossfire. Both cars sped off after the shooting. Witnesses were able to give a description of the shooter, and police later connected 19-year-old Connie Blackledge to the incident. He was a known offender in the area who had previously been charged with engaging in organized criminal activity. Several anonymous tips to investigators indicated that Blackledge owned the SUV involved in the shooting, and a witness was able to positively identify him from a previous mugshot when investigators presented them with a photo lineup. About 2 weeks later, on July the 27th, police tracked Blackledge down several states away in Minnesota and took him into custody. Number 6. Annie Sandifer. 35-year-old Annie Sandifer was on a party bus parked in front of a supper club in Milwaukee when a drive-by gunman fired 6 shots on February the 1st of 2020. Sandifer, who was 26 weeks pregnant at the time, was hit by a bullet and died at the scene. She was then rushed to the hospital in an attempt to save her unborn child, who was still in stable condition. Doctors worked quickly to perform an emergency cesarean section, and they were able to successfully deliver the deceased woman's premature baby. About a week later, law enforcement arrested and charged Antion Haywood with first-degree reckless homicide. He was reportedly also at the supper club on the night of the shooting, and witnesses claim to have seen the intoxicated man leaving the car that matched the description of the one involved in the drive-by shooting. On April the 2nd of 2021, however, a jury found Haywood not guilty and acquitted him of all charges. Number 5. Carletha Foley. Just after midnight on September the 26th of 2021, actress Carletha Foley was fatally shot while she was sleeping at her Georgia apartment. The woman's 22-year-old neighbor Maxwell Williamson was cleaning his gun in his own apartment when it accidentally discharged and shot straight through the wall they shared, ultimately hitting Foley in the head. In the aftermath, Williamson allegedly left a note for 36-year-old Foley about the damage done to the wall, but had no idea that she'd been struck by the bullet. The next morning, Foley's teenage son discovered her body and called the police. When investigators noticed the hole in the wall, they went over to Williamson's apartment to ask him about it. He admitted that the gun had gone off by accident, whereupon the police informed him that his neighbor had died as a result of it. Williamson was arrested and charged with involuntary manslaughter and reckless conduct. Number 4. Charles Spencer Hudson. 46-year-old Charles Spencer Hudson was working at a Bourbon Street nightclub in New Orleans on March the 20th of 2022 when he was hit by a stray bullet that had been fired from outside the establishment. A 24-year-old woman named Daphne Jackson was identified as the shooter, and the bullet she discharged struck Hudson in the chest, killing him on the spot. Jackson was arrested that same morning and charged with manslaughter, obstruction of justice, and discharging a weapon during a violent crime. If convicted, she faced up to 40 years in prison. Law enforcement didn't immediately disclose Jackson's intended target or the motive behind the killing. Number 3. Nia Cope. On May the 3rd of 2020, teenager Nia Cope was in Indianapolis with her mother and a friend for what was supposed to be a quiet weekend getaway when she got caught in a gunfire exchange. Nia and her friend were in the car with the former's mother, Nikki, who was behind the wheel. They were on their way to Nia's favorite restaurant when several gunshots suddenly rang out. Police believed that the gunfire had come from a large crowd that was attending a car show on the night, and that the incident had boiled down to being at the wrong place at the wrong time. As the trio passed the large crowd, the car was hit multiple times, and Nia was left bleeding from the side of her face after being hit by a bullet. Nikki pulled the car over and performed CPR on her daughter, while the friend called 911, but it was too late. Police didn't immediately have any leads on who'd killed Nia, and no arrests were made. A year later, in May of 2021, Nikki again pleaded for anyone with any information to come forward. Number 2. Anthony Alexander. On January the 11th of 2019, the Alexander family was spending a Saturday night relaxing in their Michigan home when they heard gunshots outside. 28-year-old Anthony Alexander Jr. was in his bedroom when a bullet fired from around half a block away smashed through his window and struck him in the head. Investigators believe that the stray projectile had come from either of 2 cars that were exchanging fire near the home as part of a gang or drug-related dispute. Anthony was rushed to the hospital but was later declared brain dead and placed on life support. The family ultimately decided to take him off life support and donate his organs. While no arrests were made in the case, the authorities believed that those involved in Anthony's death had also taken part in 3 shootings that occurred the following day. Police discovered a stolen car covered in bullet holes, and 2 men with gunshot wounds had gone to a local hospital for treatment. Investigators suspected that the incidents were connected, but, as of the latest information available on the matter, hadn't taken anyone into custody. Number 1. Dennis NELNER. In September of 2019, a Canadian man in the Northwest Territories was struck by a bullet meant for a bear. An Environment and Natural Resources officer had intended to shoot an aggressive bear that was roaming around the community when his bullet went through the wall of Dennis NELNER's home. The projectile bounced around the room before striking the man in the thigh, narrowly missing the bone and a major artery. NELNER was taken to the hospital where he was treated for the wound and subsequently made a full recovery. Following an investigation, the officer involved in the accidental shooting faced no charges, as the incident was described as extremely unfortunate and unpredictable. The investigation also revealed that the officer had followed the right protocol and that no issues were identified with their training or experience. As for NELNER, he hoped that what happened to him would inspire changes in how situations involving aggressive bears were handled. Thanks for watching. Be sure to click on one of the links on your screen for more videos.